Sometimes, life brings two completely different worlds crashing into each other, not by chance, but by fate. It was one of those rainy nights in New York when destiny decided to write a story that no one could have predicted. A story of sacrifice, heartbreak, and the kind of love that doesn't begin with a spark, but with a breath that saved a life. Ethan Cole was 34, a single father, and an overworked taxi driver. His world revolved around his 6-year-old daughter, Lily, a bright-eyed little girl who thought her dad could fix anything, even the stars that didn't shine. But behind Ethan's tired smile was a man who had known too much loss. His wife, Mia, had passed away 3 years earlier from leukemia. Every dollar Ethan made went to hospital bills, then rent, then groceries, and when there was something left, maybe a small ice cream for Lily. Ethan drove the night shift, because that's when fares were better. He kept a photo of Mia on his dashboard, her gentle smile a quiet reminder of why he kept pushing through. That night, the rain fell hard, blurring streetlights, washing away the sound of the city. Ethan hummed softly to the radio, exhaustion pressing against his eyelids, when his dispatcher's voice crackled through. Unit 47, pickup request. Upper East Side. Destination, Riverside Hospital. He accepted without thinking twice. Another fare meant another meal, another bit of hope. When Ethan pulled up, the building itself screamed wealth, marble columns, guards with their umbrellas, cars worth more than his lifetime of wages. Then the door opened, and a woman stumbled out, soaked, trembling, clutching her chest. She was young, maybe late 20s, dressed in a silver gown that looked torn from a gala. Her eyes, wide, frantic, met his for a second before she collapsed into the back seat. "Ma'am, are you okay?" Ethan shouted, jumping out to check on her. No response, only the faint sound of wheezing. He started the engine and sped toward the hospital, calling 911 as rain lashed the windshield. But halfway there, she stopped breathing. Come on, Ethan whispered, panic rising. "Stay with me." He pulled the cab to the side, jumped out, opened the back door, and did the only thing he could. He tilted her head back, checked her airway, and began CPR, counting under his breath, pressing on her chest, then giving her a breath of air. A breath that wasn't meant as a kiss, but as a desperate attempt to save a stranger's life. Seconds felt like hours, until finally, she gasped, coughing, her eyes snapping open in confusion and fear. "You're okay," Ethan said, voice shaking. "You're okay now." At the hospital, doctors rushed her inside. Ethan waited outside for hours, soaked, worried, until a nurse finally came out. "She's stable," the nurse said. "Your quick action saved her life." Ethan nodded, relief washing over him. He didn't even ask her name, he just left quietly, heading home before dawn, his clothes clinging cold to his skin. He didn't know that the woman he saved was Isabella Langford, only daughter of real estate tycoon Richard Langford, one of the wealthiest men in New York. The next morning, headlines read, "Langford heiress collapses during charity gala, saved by unknown taxi driver." Ethan didn't read newspapers. He was too busy making Lily's breakfast and packing her lunch for school. But Isabella remembered every second, the rain, the cab, the man's trembling hands as he gave her air when she had none left. A week later, as Ethan waited outside a downtown hotel for fares, a sleek black car pulled up beside him. Two men in suits approached. "Mr. Cole," one of them asked. Ethan froze. "Yeah, you're requested at the Langford estate. Miss Isabella Langford would like to see you." He thought it was a joke, until they handed him a card with the Langford crest embossed in gold. At the mansion, he felt out of place among marble floors and chandeliers. But then Isabella walked in, dressed simply, her long hair down, her eyes full of something he hadn't expected, warmth. "Mr. Cole," she said softly, "you saved my life." Ethan rubbed the back of his neck. "Just did what anyone would do." "No," she said firmly. "Most people would have driven away." There was silence, that strange kind of quiet that happens when two lives touch at the edges of fate. She smiled faintly. "I want to repay you." "I don't need anything," Ethan said. "Just happy you're okay." But Isabella insisted. She found out about Lily, about his late wife, about how he worked endless nights just to keep his daughter's smile alive. A few days later, Ethan received a letter, a scholarship offer for Lily to attend one of the best schools in the city, fully paid by the Langford Foundation. He tried to refuse, but Isabella wouldn't take no for an answer. Over the next few months, their paths crossed again and again. Isabella started volunteering at a community center for underprivileged families, the same one Lily attended after school. That's where Ethan saw her again, helping children read, laughing with them. At first, he couldn't understand why someone like her, someone who could buy anything, chose to spend her time with people who had so little. But as they talked, he saw behind the glamorous smile. She told him about the pressure of being an heiress, about how her father wanted her to marry for business, not love. About how lonely it felt to live in a mansion where everyone smiled at her but no one saw her. And she learned about him, how he still kept Mia's photo in his car, how every night he whispered goodnight to the stars for her, how he was terrified of ever loving again because he didn't think his heart could handle losing someone twice. They weren't supposed to fall for each other. But life, it seems, has its own plans. One night, Isabella invited Ethan and Lily to a charity gala, the same kind she'd collapsed at months ago. Lily was thrilled, spinning in her little dress. "Daddy, she looks like a princess." And she did. Isabella was radiant, but when her father saw Ethan, his face hardened. "Who is this man?" he demanded. Ethan offered a polite handshake. "Ethan Cole, sir." Richard Langford didn't shake his hand. "A taxi driver." "Isabella, have you lost your mind?" "Dad, no," he thundered. "You're not throwing away your future for some nobody." Ethan's chest burned with shame, but before he could speak, Isabella stepped forward. "He's not a nobody," she said, her voice trembling. "He's the man who saved my life, and taught me what it means to actually live." That night ended in chaos. Isabella left the mansion, defying her father for the first time. But the next morning, news broke, a viral scandal. Photos of Isabella with Ethan filled social media. Headlines mocked her for dating a cab driver. Ethan's phone wouldn't stop ringing, reporters outside his apartment, customers canceling rides, people whispering. And for the first time in years, he felt helpless. "I'm ruining your life," he told Isabella over the phone. She cried. "You saved mine, Ethan. Don't you get it? You're not my mistake. You're my miracle." But the pressure grew unbearable. Isabella's father cut her off from the family business. Ethan lost his job when the taxi company bowed to media pressure. He almost gave up, until one night, Lily found him sitting in the dark and climbed into his lap. "Daddy," she whispered, "Mommy said heroes never stop helping people, even when they're sad." That broke him. And it also rebuilt him. Ethan and Isabella decided to start something new, something good. Using what little savings he had, and with Isabella's help, they opened a community transport program, free rides for hospital patients, single parents, and elderly folks who couldn't afford transportation. They called it Heartline. It began with one car, Ethan's old taxi. But soon, volunteers joined in. Donations poured in. And before long, Heartline became a citywide initiative. Even Richard Langford couldn't ignore it. When he finally came to see the project himself, he saw his daughter smiling, truly smiling, for the first time in years. He turned to Ethan and said quietly, "You saved her once. Looks like you're still doing it." 2 years later, Heartline had hundreds of drivers. Lily was thriving in school. Isabella had become not just a philanthropist, but Ethan's partner, in every way that mattered. They never forgot that night in the rain, the night a single act of courage connected two souls who never should have met. And sometimes, when Ethan drove past the hospital where it all began, he'd smile softly and whisper, "One breath." That's all it took. Because it wasn't just CPR that saved her life that night. It was kindness. It was love. It was the belief that even the smallest act, a single breath, can change everything. Moral: even the smallest act of heart can heal the deepest pain.